This isn't just a cult. This is a cabal. This is an assemblage. This is hurly-burly. This is disquiet. This is poetry. This is fiction. This is reality. This is Bedlam. This is Chopper. Chris Campbell, the Creeping Man. I'm back on the mic because of an unexpected situation. After a 9-year slumber, the Halcyon Brothers have released new material. Now, I've said this before on the podcast, and I'll say it again now. I'm a huge fan of the Halcyon Brothers. So, this is something of a grand occasion for me. Really, the only things that might top a new Halcyon Brothers album would be a new release from or John Cougar Mellencamp. And I'd like to stress John Cougar Mellencamp and not John Cougar or John Mellencamp. John Cougar was a bit naive and John Mellencamp, somewhat preachy for my taste. But John Cougar Mellencamp, that's the shit. Of course, I might be a little biased. I've got a history with the brothers, and I guess you could say I'm actually a brother myself now. I supplied the beats for one of the tracks on the new Halcyon Brothers album that was just released on all platforms. It's called We Might Fall Apart. 10 tracks in under 30 minutes. But, real quick, the history. Back in 1999, there was a musical project helmed by Björ6n Oranj and myself, and it was called Squid 1969. It was experimental and weird and kind of ahead of its time, if it's okay for me to say that. We enlisted Bosky Rumbluffer as a producer, engineer, guy with actual musical talent to help us out. 3 releases in 1 year. Not bad. Like I said, it was 20 years ago. If you've been listening to this podcast, you might have heard there's some discord about the whole Squid 1969 story. Bjorn recalls it something like this.
Hello. My name is Björ6n Oranj. Decades ago, in a 24-hour warehouse grocery store in mid-America, a college town, around 4 a.m., while searching for marzipan and utilizing an underappreciated mobility scooter provided by the 24-hour grocery store, I came upon a pasty, thin, bespectacled, and utterly confused man staring deeply into an end-cap display of sugar while wearing what appeared to be off-white thermal long underwear. He was holding an unlit Roman candle in his hand. He seemed entranced. He seemed bemused. He seemed unnecessary of human contact, but yet in need of a certain type of sugar. I introduced myself. I was drunk and high, I think. I assume. I made a paper airplane from a shelf advertisement offering a 2-for-1 deal on genuine Hawaiian pure cane sugar. The man in the off-white thermal long underwear tracked the path of the flight of the ad hoc paper airplane without any bodily motion other than his eyes. I silently offered him a coconut-flavored, non-fat popsicle from a package that I intended on purchasing but had already opened and was in fact, at that moment, enjoying myself. He accepted and unwrapped the popsicle carefully, folding the covering into ever smaller squares until he finally reached down and placed the condensed, rudimentary origami package within the lower portion of the thermal underwear, seemingly deep under his ball sack. So that was a thing that happened.
But I gotta tell you, I don't remember it that way at all. Here's my recollection. We didn't meet in a 24-hour warehouse grocery store in mid-America. Our paths first crossed in a mid-American college radio station. I was volunteering as a DJ at this radio station, and when I listened to the station, I'd often hear this one guy, just stumbling through his shift, mispronouncing artist names, chopping off songs with minutes remaining. It was a little embarrassing, but I guess to be fair, that was college radio, and honestly, I wasn't any better. But this guy, he'd come on the mic and he'd say something like, this is Björ6n Oranj, and you just heard a track by They Might Be Giants. And I'm thinking, what the hell is a Björ6n Oranj? And then I finally met the guy at the radio station. The station was holding the Saturday picnic for all of the volunteers. And we had recently moved from this 3-room dungeon in the basement of the library to this brand new state-of-the-art studio that would have really given any 100,000-watt FM station a run for its money. And I'm standing in line at the buffet table, and this guy ahead of me just nabbed my attention. He looked like the offspring of a love smudge weekend romp among Charles Nelson Riley, Adrienne Barbeau, Joyce DeWitt, and Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. His jeans were rolled up, tight as was the fashion in the early 90s, and he wore this faded Hawkwind t-shirt with the red and green flannel shirt tied off at the waist. His plate was sagging with about 8 pounds of baked beans, and so I followed him through the line, and we wound up sitting next to each other at a picnic table. And when I introduced myself, he said his name was Björ6n Oranj. And we shook hands, and then he immediately jerked his arm back and he started sniffing his hand. His eyes bugged out, and he kind of turned his body to shield what he was about to do, but I clearly saw him licking his fingers. So, that was the thing that happened. Now, this Dutch documentary from 2012 has just surfaced. Bosky Rumbluffer tells a different story in a wildly rambling 7-hour interview.
Hello. My name is Bosky Rumbluffer. I would like to set the record straight on how I came to be entangled, involved with the band Squid. Or Squid 1969 if you give a shit. The Creeping Man and Björ6n Oranj are, sadly, both suffering from memory loss on a great scale. I am currently trying to get them a room at a local facility. It was a bitterly cold, sleet-ridden afternoon in 1969. I had to make an emergency trip to the Guitar Center in Roseville to procure some cheese. As I browsed the dairy, what happened to the music? Hello? Huh. Guess I'm on my own. Anyway, as I browsed the dairy aisle, I couldn't help but notice a couple of sad and downtrodden chaps being browbeaten into purchasing a vocoder. It was clear they had no idea what a vocoder was or even if they needed one. One of these clods was wearing a Smith's t-shirt and some sketchy off-white thermal underwear and flip-flops. The other guy was dressed in a bowler hat and spats. I stood transfixed as the hip rock and roll clerk extolled the virtues of the soon-to-be outdated piece of gear. The clods just nodded in bewildered agreement. For some reason, I felt bad for these guys. So I sullied forth and interrupted the transaction. Guys, I said. Let's go into the meat department. The hip rock and roll clerk shot me a snarl through his lip ring. "What are you guys looking for?" I asked. Something that'll fuck shit up," said bowler hat guy. "Well, what kind of shit are you wanting to fuck up?" I asked. "Dunno, man. Some weird shit. Samples and shit, you know," said thermal undie guy. Bowler hat guy then slipped me a homemade business card that said Squid Industries LLC. "You're putting the cart before the horse, aren't you?" I asked. "We're already planning a tour in Italy," said Thermal, though he didn't seem to have totally bought into the whole thing. After more small talk, they learned that I was a musician and producer of some note in the Twin Cities area. Some would say some note would be modest. Anyway, the duo invited me to their workshop, which consisted of an array of antiquated synthesizers, drum machines, one-string bass guitars, and the mothership, a Fostex 4-track cassette recorder. Off in the corner was a table saw halfway through a slab of plywood with a microphone next to it. This was going to be an interesting ride. I invited them to the underground lair, my vocoding recording studio in my garden-level apartment in pre-gentrified uptown Minneapolis. I'm pretty sure by now the building has been leveled and a totally unique condo built on its ashes. Anyway, the duo seemed a bit queasy/peckish upon arrival, so I had my assistant order us a pizza. "Can you keep it..." Hang on. Where was I? Oh, yes. So they seemed hungry, and so I had my assistant order us a pizza. We were already feverishly trying to create some sort of creative atmosphere, and then we were rudely interrupted by a knock on the door. It was Martin Scorsese. "Jesus, Martin," I snapped. "What the fuck is it now?" I'd forgotten he was scheduled to film a short documentary piece about my legacy in the Minneapolis recording scene. "Look," I said, "I'll pay for your stay at the Marquette. Can we just do this tomorrow?" Well, he accepted my generous offer. I turned back to the two clods, staring slack-jawed at my rudely slammed door. "Was that..." Bowler hat guy started. "Yes," I replied. "Happens all the time." Well, with this interruption out of the way, we proceeded to record what is without question one of the most influential albums ever recorded. If they do say so themselves.
So that was Squid 1969, the first project where we all worked together. And that was like 20 years ago. I don't want to get sidetracked, though. Squid 1969 is available on various streaming platforms. Give it a listen. There's really nothing else like it. All right, so after Squid 1969 dissolved, mostly because of my obsession with sensory deprivation isolation pods. Really, that was about 65% of the problem, but honestly, Björn's professional dune buggy racing commitments and then Bosky's Estonian legal problems were also contributing factors. So the thing is, with the new millennium approaching, I entered a saltwater flotation cabin in November of 1999. Again, I don't want to get into the details on this, but suffice it to say, that was a scary time. I mean, new millennium, Y2K, it was just too much. I slipped on a pair of off-white thermal underwear, put Buju Banton on repeat, and I climbed inside the tank. It was sweet. Because of my absence during this time, I'm not really clear on what was happening with Björn and Bosky. I can never really get a straight answer from either of them. I know that Björn was driving around the American Southwest, Mexico, and I think even Central America in a 1972 Winnebago Brave at that time. I've seen some photos of him standing outside the Winnebago with his dune buggy on a trailer and holding his helmet. And if you look closely at this one particular picture, the curtains are pulled back just a bit. And I think it's Bosky peering out. Like I said, around this time, Bosky had some severe legal problems in Estonia stemming from a failed business venture he'd started with Martin Scorsese. Anyway, it's my theory that this is where the Halcyon Brothers were born. In late 2001, maybe early 2002, the first album from the brothers was released, A Dusty Bible Leads to a Dirty Life. And I love this album. Just to be clear, I am not on this album, and I've got some strong issues with Björn and a couple of gripes with Bosky, mostly stemming from this incident at the Godfather's Pizza. Anyway, when I say I love their first album, I really mean it. In fact, I love their whole catalog. Their debut release, A Dusty Bible Leads to a Dirty Life, that's like the musical equivalent to an eccentric tattooed aunt, a little rough around the edges, who drives an 82 El Camino, has a high bowling score of 212, and whose beverage of choice is a gin Ricky. Their sophomore release from 2003, Butterflies with Bayonets, that's a distilled blend of jangly guitars, tight percussion, and sweeping lyrics, elucidating everything from Coca-Cola freakouts to tax evaders. Whisper the Moon and the Stars Will Revolt came out in 2008. That's an eclectic 25-track pop-punk odyssey screaming through deserted downtown streets at 3 a.m. And then we come to my personal favorite, 2011's Set Upon by Satellites. This one's got everything in spades. The brothers are musically tight, and Björn's novel lyrics cover everything from foosball to John Paul Stevens. And this one's got my favorite Halcyon Brothers lyric. If I blow my top, I'll shoot out some stars from outside my neck and straight to your heart. I love the concrete storytelling on that album. And now, 9 years later, we get a new release, We Might Fall Apart. I wanted to get the story about the new album, like what made them decide to come out of retirement and get the Halcyon Brothers up and running again. Bosky, he was not hard to find. He's usually at Red Door Studios in beautiful northeast Minneapolis. So I called him up. He said, yeah, come on over. One stipulation, though, don't bring up Godfather's Pizza again. No problem. But before we get to that conversation, how about we listen to a brand new track, just so we have the right frame of reference. Here's Leaves of the Sea, the new track from the Halcyon Brothers.
There was a tree, and there was a man. And the man in the tree had a hell of a plan. He rose to the top and shook all the leaves, and all the leaves fell to the opening sea, and the opening sea had a hell of a curse. The curse was, in fact, the ultimate worst that there ever could be. So the man in the tree shook all the leaves hit the sea with a blip and a blap. Soft little sounds like a cat in a nap. The leaves ruled the sea, and the seas held the leaves. There was never a thought to not disagree. The sea was the leaves, and the leaves were the sea. Both of the ones supplying their needs. And on the story will go till the tree and the man and the leaves of the tree and the leaves of the sea begin to forget and then disagree. And on the story will go. There was a tree, and there was a man, and the man in the tree
had a hell of a plan. He rose to the top and shook all the leaves, and all the leaves fell to the opening sea, and the opening sea had a hell of a curse. The curse was in fact the ultimate worst that there ever could be. So the man in the tree shook all the leaves of the sea with a blip and a blap, soft all sounds like a cat in a nap. The leaves were the seas, the sea held the leaves. There was never a thought to not just agree. The sea was the leaves were the sea. Both of them one supplying their needs. And on the story will go, till the tree and the man and the leaves of the tree and the leaves of the sea begin to forget and then disagree. And on the story will go. The story will go. On the story will go. Till the tree and the man, the leaves of the tree, the leaves of the sea begin to forget and then disagree. And on the story will go. And on the story will go. And on the story will go.
Hey, Bosky, congrats on the new album. Before we get into that, though, I was hoping to get a couple of things cleared up about the history of the Halcyon Brothers. So, the end of 99 until about 2002 are a bit fuzzy for me. You know, I was doing a lot of floating and I was kind of out of it. So, forgive me if I'm stepping into anything too personal, but maybe enough time has passed. Now, I remember you might have been having some legal issues in Estonia. You might have been on the lam. Here, check out this picture. You see, that's Björn there with the helmet. You can see his dune buggy in the background. And now check out the window in the Winnebago. You see here the curtain pulled back? Now, the face in the window is kind of obscured by the glare of the sun, but those unfocused eyes, that slack-jawed expression, that looks a lot like you. So, were you hiding out with Bjorn in Mexico when this?
Well, look here, Chopper. Chops. Mi amigo. I want to make something perfectly clear right from the get-go here. I have been thinking about this quite a bit these last few years. The name Elmer. You know that name?
Elmer? Yeah, I've heard the name.
Right, now listen to me. That name Elmer. It's not that popular of a name. I mean, I don't know anyone named Elmer. But, like 100 years ago, it was a top 50 name for guys. Elmer Gantry, Elmer Bernstein, Elmer Rice. But now it's like not even in the top 1,000.
Oh, really?
Not for long, though. Mark my words. It's making a comeback. A strong comeback.
Really?
Hear me out now. You look at the top boys' names for babies right now in 2020. Liam, Noah, Oliver, Elijah. I didn't even know an Eli when I was growing up. In my class back in Aberdeen, there were 17 Michaels, 16 Dans, 12 Jasons, 11 Kevins, and a Stuart. But no Elijahs. Now you can't throw a pack of Little Debbie Nutty Buddies without hitting an Elijah.
Well, you make a good point, I guess. I haven't given it much thought. But what about...
You should. How much money you got in the bank? Cash. Liquid. Whatever you can get, you should head over to Atlantic City. Or maybe even Indiana and place some money on it. Cash in. Elmer. You heard it here first. Of course, I'm going to want to cut. That's just fair. Don't even try to fight me on this one, Chopper. Don't even, and I mean it.
Okay, no problem. Can we talk about the new Halcyon Brothers album, We Might Fall Apart? I love the title. A little ominous. What's that about?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask Bjorn. He's the word guy. I don't mind, really. I mean, I don't even really like words. I wish we could just skip words altogether. Leads to trouble the way I see it. But knowing Bjorn, he would probably say something like, humans, unlike other animals, sentient beings, strive to progress. We like that about ourselves. We hold it up and honor it. That progress, technological developments in particular, are called advancements. Betterment. A lot of these progressions are born from science. Sometimes they are referred to as scientific advancements. Science has taught humans many things. Noteworthy here, science has taught us that everything has consequences. Sometimes these consequences are intentional. Sometimes they are unforeseen. They can have unintentional consequences. Steps forward, we like. Steps backward, unintentional steps. We tend to ignore those or not even notice them. We like to separate ourselves, humans, from the rest of the animals. We think we are better. Are we? He'd probably say something like that. Then again, he might say something like, we don't dip our cauliflower in the milk and wipe it on the table to make it coyote. Wordy stuff. He likes words, I think.
Bosky, are you okay in there? Have you hit your head recently?
You want some Cheetos?
No, I'm good. Thanks. But about the new album.
It's about time for my nap, Chopper.
Wait. The Halcyon Brothers have always had some political messages in their songs. With We Might Fall Apart, there seems to be a clear political commentary. Can you say anything about that?
Look, Chopper, again, you would really need to talk to Björn about that. I mean, after the whole Estonia thing, the trouble Martin and I got into, Pesci having to bail us out, all the money we lost on that project, the lawsuits, the sanctions. Yep, I have learned my lesson. I don't get into any of that anymore. Talk to Björn. The truth of the matter is, we go into the studio. Björn picks up his big hymnal of lyrics. He kind of randomly opens it, studies the page for a minute. I'm just quiet, sipping a whiskey. If there are others in the room, they're just quiet too. Then he points at something. Let's say Zach. He points at Zach. He says, the drums go like this. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-ba-ba. You know, like the Mike Curb congregation or the Ainsley Dunbar retaliation. No cymbals! No fucking cymbals! In fact, then he will just physically come over and remove the cymbals. Or any other parts of the kit that he doesn't like. Just toms and bass. Just play the toms and bass like I told you to. Just like that. Then he'll look at me and say something like, the guitar goes like this. Zingy, 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 plop. Fuzz, zoom. Like Zoothorn Rollo or England Dan and John Ford Coley. Then he'll want the bass to sound like Can or Tame Impala or a Rice-A-Roni commercial. Something will need the energy of the Murder City Devils. Probably a zither. And then it's done. Sometimes he isn't even in the country. He's in the Seychelles.
I think it's pronounced the Seychelles.
Whatever. It's pretty nerve-wracking. But what are you gonna do? I mean, to be honest, he has some shit on me from that Estonia thing, and I'm not going back. No fucking way. If he wants the guitar to sound like a chorus of mosquitoes in a Billy Bragg cover band, so be it.
The Halcyon Brothers has always been you and Bjorn at its core. You brought in Dorje Lamb for a little guitar work on Whisper the Moon, and for the fourth album, Set Upon by Satellites. That one also had Zach Scott on drums and Ted Eastman on bass. Zach's on a couple of the tracks of this new album, and there's a couple of new members in the mix. Mint Machete from This Isn't Just a Cult supplies some guitar on The Truth Is, and I recorded some beats for Everybody's Got Something to Sell. So how did you like this new mix of personnel?
Before I answer that, I think we should talk about a few other players that you might not be aware of. You're just talking about the people that have been on the released material. There have been others that were in the band for a bit but didn't make it to the recording sessions for one reason or another. There have also been a couple of people who wanted to work with us but didn't want to be in the credits. There are contractual things to worry about. Our management over at Higgins Turner Higgins LLC takes care of that.
All right, well, give me a bit more about that. Who was in the band but didn't record with you?
I really don't know how much I can say about that. You might want to talk to Björn. He handles all the dealings with the lawyers and management. Not my cup of tea. But I could probably tell you a couple of things. One time Björn showed up at Red Door Studio in his truck. In the back he had an organ he had just purchased at Goodwill for $13. In the passenger seat was a dude named, let's call him Derek. Björn found him at Goodwill too. I couldn't figure out if Derek worked at Goodwill or lived at Goodwill. Anyway, Björn was fascinated with Derek because he could play the Andes Martinal. I had never heard of this instrument, but Björn was fucking excited. He kept talking about Radiohead's Kid A and how the Andes was pivotal in that sound. So anyway, Derek can play one. Great, let's do it, I say. Björn's got this whole trilogy of EPs planned out that will use it. Something about a crimson snake in a land of fire, something boomerang, something Werner von Braun, whatever. You know Björn. I'm totally on board. By this time, Derek is milling around this little garden area, and I'm looking at the organ. Looked like an ordinary organ to me. Is this a Andes Martinal? I asked. Oh no, Björn tells me. No, it is not. But it is an organ with a pseudo-Leslie speaker, so that's pretty sweet. Yes, sweet. Does Derek have an Andes Martinal? Hey Derek, do you have an Andes Martinal? Derek shook his head softly, no. Björn looks at me. No, he does not. So then we spent about 4 hours searching eBay and Craigslist for a fucking Andes Martinal. Derek found the beer fridge and just made himself at home. So it turns out that you can't just go online and buy an Andes Martinal. They're kind of rare and therefore super expensive. Also, Derek can't play the organ. Not even a $13 Goodwill organ with a pseudo-Leslie speaker. Can't play it at all. Nothing. Björn took him back to Goodwill. There were others too. Björn brought in a pastry chef who played harmonica and soprano sax at the same time. She was in the band for about 2 months. I think we have some of that in the archives. Fine player, but kind of a one-trick pony. There was the Thompson twins. Not the Thompson twins. No. These were the Thompson twins of Moorhead, Minnesota. Jake and Giuseppe Thompson. Oh shit, I shouldn't have said their real names. Yeah, no big deal, I guess. They're both dead now anyway. Sandcastle Disaster at Lake Vermilion. Jake played glockenspiel and Giuseppe played bass. They were actually pretty good, but they were both addicts. Jake was really into Ativan and Klonopin mixed with Robitussin. Giuseppe was on the other end of the spectrum, mixing Adderall with Ritalin and Red Bull. If you caught them at just the right point in the cycle, there was about 12 minutes of musical brilliance like you have never heard before. Björn thought he could work out a system and manage their intake and timing. It was just another chasing the dragon situation. No go. Speaking of twins, there is another set of twins that actually cut some tracks with us for Butterflies with Bayonets. I know I can't use their names. That was made very clear by them. Let's call them Melly and Mim Steele of, we better go with Akron. They did a bunch of stuff on that album. Spoons, violin, swords, backing vocals, lead guitar on a couple of songs. But they insisted that we mute their tracks. But it's there. You can't hear it, if you look at the file, yep, it's there. Pretty cool. Okay, buddy, that's about it. Sleepy, sleepy, sleepy time. Bosky needs a nap. Don't let the door slap you in the ass on the way out. Ta-ta.
Now, before we move on to my interview with Björn, here's another track on the new album from the Halcyon Brothers. Here's Every Blink and Stare.
There was a time when I was addled, when I was rattled, when I would fall apart, up and down your breast, when I would disagree with every blink and stare, when I would wonder if anybody really cared about the diversion from the conversion or the incursion of the coercion and the inversion of the assertion, feeling uncertain of the conversion, all things suburban, so much assertion to my aversion, and the excursions, just to the term, real deep subversion, really immersion of some subversion, or insertion of some desertion, and then we'd all fall apart with every blink and stare. There was a time when I was saddled, when I was battled, when I could live or die, didn't even care, when my words and thoughts were really quite fair, when everything good in life was really getting scarce. Because of the timelines and all the designs, last on this time, all the guidelines, we used every skyline just to opine and tried to define just for one time. I needed to refine my soul for recline, shift from the spine to the divine, release and fines for my lifeline, for my lifeline, before I decline. And then we'd all fall apart with every blink and stare. We'd all fall apart with every blink and stare. And now it is down, I'm still hard to handle. I tend to just babble, and I might fall apart up and down your prayers. I might disagree, but I'm fitting off the stare. I won't wonder if anybody cares, because love is out of fashion. It's more than just passion. Love might feel like a spasm, but intense assassin. Love is not irrational. Love will just happen. Love is not a mention. It's a passion. Love is not a caption. It's a action. Love is not passion. Love is adaption. Love is not distraction. Love smells like jasmine. Love is not a function. Love is a companion. Love's not an assassin. Love is compassion. And we might just fall apart with every blink and stare, and then we'll rise back up, because we all can care. We might fall apart with every blink and stare.
Now, Björn was a little tougher for me to track down, but I did manage to find him. He was hiking in Laos, about 2 hours north of Luang Prabang, when I managed to get a hold of him on his sat phone. Hey, Björn, buddy, I tracked you down. What you doing in Laos?
Yeah, I guess you did find me, didn't you? Well, you know, it's great to hear the sound of your voice. What have I been up to? What have I been doing here in Laos? Well, mostly hiking, contemplating too, doing a lot of contemplation. You know, I'm sort of at a crossroads. I'm trying to plan my next move. I find that some hiking is a great way for me to get my head together.
Yeah, have you come up with anything so far?
Well, you know, mostly hairstyling.
Hairstyling?
Right. I've been giving a lot of thought to hairstylists. Famous hairstylists. You know, Vidal Sassoon, Paul Mitchell, Jerry Redding, Christian. There used to be a ton of them. You know, sure, they're around now too, you know, on Instagram or whatever. You know, maybe they're influencers, but I'm talking about really famous hairstylists. You see them on talk shows and stuff. You know, like Mike Douglas or Merv Griffin. They all had their own signature products that were sold really exclusively at salons. I don't know. I think it might be the right time to bring that back. You know, not me, not myself. No. I don't want that type of fame, egads, no. But I wouldn't mind being a Colonel Tom Parker kind of guy, you know? If I can find the right person with the right amount of charisma, someone with a really good ascot neck. Maybe. I don't know. I'm thinking about it.
Okay, cool. Sounds about right. Hey, I was just thinking about when you started the Halcyon Brothers with Bosky. Were you two driving around Central America in a Winnebago, recording songs along the way? Because I've been trying to piece that theory together. Maybe you could give me the lowdown.
Well, let's see. I know that I was doing a lot of dune buggying around that time. I did have a sweet 1972 Winnebago Brave D20, 21 foot with a dinette. Let's see. Mostly I remember I was working on a business plan for a single-use toothbrush company. Around the turn of the century, everyone was real paranoid. I don't know if you remember that. I mean, really, really paranoid. End of the world type stuff was on everyone's mind. A lot of dystopia stuff in the media. Germophobia was on the rise, largely fueled by advertising madness. I was going to capitalize on that, you see. I was going to produce single-use toothbrushes. I'm not much of a germaphobe myself, but it does seem to me that unless you're soaking that brush in some sort of bleach solution after every use, you're going to have a lot of germs clinging to every bristle, even if you rinse it off. I rinse mine off, and there's still bits of popcorn and cashews stuck in the bristles when I go to use it the next time. So yes, maybe that was when we started recording, maybe? Yeah, maybe. I know I had a nice futon in that RV and a VHS copy of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou. I don't remember Bosky exactly, but he's sneaky that way. He could have pulled a Cape Fear on me. Remember the remake of Cape Fear when Max Cady straps himself underneath the chassis of Sam Bowden's car? Yeah, Bosky's wily like that. He could have been hiding out the whole time without me knowing it. Could be. Sounds about right.
I was talking with Bosky about the title of your new album, We Might Fall Apart. He had a couple of ideas about the meaning, but he just kind of directed me to you, saying that he's in charge of the words. So, what about it? We Might Fall Apart. I'm just curious, what was your intention with that for the album title?
Chopper, man, I love you, buddy, but, we don't dip our cauliflower in the milk and wipe it on the table to make it coyote.
Okay, that's a little weird. Bosky said that you would say that.
Look, historically, you, Chopper, you seem to have a hard line on milk coyotes, but I don't understand why.
Fair point, and I'm actually glad we're addressing it. I think it's important to discuss milk coyotes openly and honestly. Seriously, and I want you to know, from the bottom of my heart, that I hear your words. Some people feel differently than me about milk coyotes, and that's okay. It's all about compromise, Bjorn, even when it's not. This country was built on a foundation of milk, yeah, but not coyotes. We can find a way to bring the two together, if not on my kitchen table, then perhaps in the yard, but that's just me. That's where I stand on this salacious subject. But let me make this very clear, buddy. Open discourse is so important to our development as Earthlings. And if it takes me 20 years to engage in dialogue, well, that's only because I'm so dedicated that I want to ensure I've thought about the matter from every possible angle.
Okay. Thank you. I can appreciate that. It is obvious that you have put a great deal of time into your position on this very important subject, especially considering this moment in history when the media landscape is either avoiding or straight up spreading misinformation, maybe disinformation about this matter. Indeed, it is a very troubling situation, and I think this is why I have such grave concerns about the statements that you have made. For you, a person renowned for in-depth analysis, a person with a track record of deep compassion, to take such a blatant anti-coyote position, well, it gives me pause to say the least. This country was built on a foundation of milk, but not coyotes? That, and I am sorry to be blunt here, is a comment straight out of the Associated Milk Conglomerate's playbook. It's revisionist history. It's a milk washing. and it is clearly prejudicial towards the coyote community. Again, with all of respect and apologies, I am sorry to be so heavy-handed on this matter, but I do feel that it is time to speak up towards injustice. I know that your intention is not to harm. You are the product of your environment, and the AMC has been spending millions on this very clever, if not just diabolical propaganda campaign for decades in order to line their own pockets. May I suggest the recent New Yorker interview with Wile E. Coyote? It is very eye-opening.
Obviously strong feelings on the matter. We won't resolve this here. I don't think we can, but I'm going to give it some thought. So let's go back to the lyrics. You were the wordsmith in the Halcyon Brothers. What songwriter, fiction writer, or poet has had the biggest influence on you?
Biggest influence on me, literary influence. Literary influence? Yeah, I'd have to go with Zachariah Bergstrom, who wrote Extra Large Averies. I believe it was the summer of 1953 while on a vacation from his job as a geotechnical engineer. You see, I too used to be a geotechnical engineer, so that was, I guess that's what really connected me to Bergstrom initially. And then, Bergstrom, he despised his job. I despised my job. Again, a strong connection. He was forced into engineering because it was like the family business. His father was an engineer who had started the firm with his uncle. Both his brothers were engineers. His sister worked at the firm as well, and his mother was something of a utility player. Bergstrom detested all of them. They were idiots. I don't have any sisters myself. In Extra Large Averies, Bergstrom writes, let me see if I can get this right. I used to know this by heart. It's something like, when the cows low at midnight, and the stickman cometh, return ye to the cellar neath the old moss church. There meet the 3 Avery sisters, who with throaty ululations and sackcloths brimming with marsupial back fuzz will potion a tincture to ward away the coming blight. That really floored me when I first read it. The second time not so much, but the first time, wow! I was overwhelmed. It was really devastating. It was, well, I was pretty drunk at the time. That should be clear. So I probably blurred the words and read it completely wrong, but nevertheless, it had a lasting impact on me because that was when I first realized that I should probably get some professional help. I was in a tailspin. I mean, Zachariah Bergstrom? Who the fuck is Zachariah Bergstrom? Who reads Zachariah Bergstrom? Look it up. The book was self-published. He gave it away as birthday and Christmas presents for like 15 years. No one, not even Zachariah Bergstrom, has ever read the entire book, and it's like 57 pages long. It's shit. You know that the decisions that you have made in your life have been horribly wrong when you're sitting on a gas station floor reading a copy of Zachariah Bergstrom's Extra Large Averies that you found on the bathroom floor when you realized you could no longer stand. That is an omen. Yeah. So yeah. Zachariah Bergstrom has probably been the biggest influence on me.
You get pretty political with the lyrics in this one. Everyone's got something to sell, the truth is, and especially Message Man. Can you comment?
Well, good question. You know, Chopper, we live in some very strange times. Personally, I have a broken face. I've got messed up teeth. Things have been broken. That's good. You know, a daily reminder, good for the ego. Things get broken, and things don't fall completely apart. That's a good reminder. The thing is, and here's the thing, I get used to it. I don't notice that things are fucked up. It's not my whole face. It's parts of my face. Maybe my whole face will be fucked up someday, but it isn't right now, so am I supposed to worry about that? I think worry is a waste of time. Worry isn't even action. Worry is a concept. Action is action. Everything seems more or less functional, so what's the problem? Well, maybe I should check things out a bit. I know there are some issues with the infrastructure, and things have been patched together as best I could at the time, but I should probably stay on top of it. The thing is, I got a lot of stuff in my Netflix queue, you know? I've got other things going on too. This whole hairstylist thing, that might blow up. That could be a big thing. I'm working on it, you know, maybe. And then, you know, I could bring back the whole disposable bamboo toothbrushes idea. That's a good idea. I could be working on that too. So these are things that are kind of distractions. They kind of pull me away from maybe this, important thing that I should be working on that I'm not working on. And that's just me. It's not that I'm apathetic. I'm doing stuff. I told you I'm doing stuff. I'm working on stuff. And for the most part, I'm doing stuff that's worth doing. So, look around. Just about everyone is broken somehow. You know, and some are working on it. And some aren't. And some don't realize that they need to be working on it. They don't even know that they're broken. You usually don't go from upright posture to hunchback in a day. The angle descends gradually over time. You don't even know. On a larger scale, society is broken. Pretty much always has been. But you know, and Chopper, I don't know about you, but it seems like it's getting worse. And frankly, you know, from my position, we need to get it together and work on it. You know, action. But there is a lot in our Netflix queue, you know, documentaries on tiny houses and green cities, how to be vegan, serial killers, softcore porn, whatever, you know? So, isn't everything kind of political? To answer your question, isn't all of this political? Isn't everything that we do a vote? So yeah, we might fall apart.
You, Bjorn, you might be right. Maybe. But I've got no fucking clue what you're talking about. Congrats on the new album, you guys. Hopefully we won't have to wait another 9 years. You've been listening to This Isn't Just a Cult, a work of real fiction. The episode was written, performed, and produced by Björ6n Oranj, Chris Campbell, and Bosky Rumbluffer. Despite what you might think, the Halcyon Brothers are a real band, and they're a part of the This Isn't Just a Cult constellation of artists. They have 5 albums, including their latest, We Might Fall Apart, that you can find at Bandcamp, Spotify, Deezer, iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, and just about any other place you get your listening pleasure. Learn about this art collective at thisisn'tjustacult.com. This Isn't Just a Cult is a production of Higgins Turner Higgins, LLC. Subscribing and reviews are greatly appreciated. Thanks for listening.
Available now from Do Tell Records, the latest from the Halcyon Brothers. Their new album, We Might Fall Apart. All tracks recorded by the original artist. You'll hear such hot tracks as Leaves of the Sea,
And the leaves of
The House Burned Down, Suntastic Weekends.
My weekend was just suntastic.
Critics have spoken.
I'm afraid I just wasn't a fan of this song.
A wee bit too commercial for my...
This is an exclusive offer. The new album from the Halcyon Brothers, We Might Fall Apart, on cassette or LP for the price of only 27 minutes of your precious time. Call now to receive your copy of We Might Fall Apart from the Halcyon Brothers on cassette or LP. Only available from Do Tell Records. Some of the songs featured in this ad are not actually on the album We Might Fall Apart, but were included for promotional purposes only.
Yeah! Hey! It's Jack Billings of Jack Billings Presents Me and My Neighbor Michael.
It's a comedy podcast about neighborhood goings-on.
Yeah, nailed it, bud!
What do we do on this podcast?
I don't know if you guys have perverts in your neighborhood.
We sure did. We no longer talk about your broken penis.
Did we talk about my penis?
Yeah, we talked about it way too much.
Huh.
I couldn't stand the weather, so I got myself together with the ocean. So now I'm swimming all the way. I think I'll take myself to Spain. I've got a notion there will be a jubilee. You see, I've got it here with me. I've got a potion. Before I fall apart, I must release it from my heart. It's my devotion. So don't you ever doubt, no, don't you ever doubt. Across an ocean with an ocean, I've got a little potion called devotion. I couldn't stand the weather, so I got myself together with the ocean. So now I'm swimming all the way. I think I'll take myself to Spain. I've got a notion there will be a jubilee. You see, I've got it here with me. I've got the potion. Before I fall apart, I must release it from my heart. It's my devotion. So don't you ever doubt, no, don't you ever doubt. Across an ocean with an ocean, I've got a little potion called devotion. Hearts and chops and alibis, your finger pressed in my arm. I never stopped to realize, I never thought to say goodbye. Why, oh why, you used hearts and charts and a disguise. Maybe even got me high, always whispered lullabies in ways that simply mystify. Spy, oh spy, oh spy, oh spy, true, oh true, oh true, oh true. Spy, oh spy, oh spy, oh spy, true, oh true, oh true, oh true.